ourselves the negative stuff versus I can. Would you send your kid to a teacher that has that mindset when they're teaching? And that's what we're doing to ourselves.
Okay, that's awesome. So I thought the same thing. It is all mindset. And, it's not a big aha, but it was kind of like a wake up, like that. Whenever I start out to do something and I'm thinking, well, I just might be able to do this, or if this happens, then that'll be awesome. But then when I read it, and it says that when you set out to achieve something, always begin with the belief that you just might do it. That's a total mindset shift. So if I start out with my goal as, telling myself that, hey, I'm going to do this and it's going to be awesome, right? Then it puts your whole mind into the thought that it is going to happen instead of always giving yourself a plan B. So this was an awesome chapter for sure.
Yeah. What else? We'll take one or two more.
So I kind of highlighted a little bit of everything under each myth, but one that really stood out was not only just the mindset, but where he said you can't know what you're really capable of doing until you try and never give up. In fact, many people have said that they believe that failure is not the worst thing in the world. They believe the very worst is not to try at all. It's been observed that many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up.
I like that. Sweet. No, actually, I think that one's a great one to end on. Like, people don't realize that they were so close to success when they gave up. Now, obviously, the balance is that, like, do you try for 20 years? It's like there's definitely a balance in how to keep moving forward and where to keep moving forward. There's a sense when you've got to be able to pull the plug. Okay, so I asked you guys last week, and this is our second thing we're going to warm up with, and then we're going to move into the ideal schedule conversation. And Karina is not going to be with us this morning. She's has a call with David that she's been adjusting for being with us, and so she wants to make sure that she doesn't miss that call. David Weaver, who's over there with them at the Loken group, and so we're not going to do the May event. If you guys have those ideas written down and want to discuss them, why don't we just, instead of going through that discussion, why don't we just email a group email with Karina, just kind of your idea on that one. So there we go. Analogy. What's the analogy when you're looking at this? What's the analogy that you guys had for lead generation? Analogies. Lead gen is like, or a metaphor.
You said to draw something, right?
Well, if you drew something, that's fine. I don't know if I said to draw something, but I said to come up with an analogy.
Yeah, you said to draw it out. I drew mine on my iPad. You want me to share?
Yeah,
my
I do.
Okay. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, hold on. It's a little corny, but that's what I think. Can you see it?
That's I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's my analogy. It's kind of obvious. You put in the time, make the calls, and it makes you money.
Okay. All right. What else, guys? I like that. That was very creative there, sister.
Okay.
Well, I didn't come up with something of my own, but I just happened to be on Facebook, and all of a sudden Tom Ferry popped up.
Okay.
And his was, the bigger the funnel, the more opportunities come to you. And of course, that's totally, in MREA is that funnel. And he was talking also about the fishermen and how they were going out early and stealing all the fish. And he said, well, don't let that be a deterrent. Just cast a larger net.
Okay. Hold on 1 second, because I like that. So
yeah.
Early.
It's not original. It's not original. I took it right off Facebook.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Early fishermen. Don't worry. Cast a bigger net. Okay, love it. Can you screenshot your drawing and send it to me, Brandy? What else, guys?
So I did this.
Let's see. Is that a dollar bill making a call?
Yeah.
I'm gonna sketch that out. That's awesome.
Dollar bill making a call.
That's cute.
What else, guys?
Mine is you can fish in a creek and catch a few fish, or you can fish in a lake and catch a bunch of fish.
I love it. Anybody else? Ashley, Crystal had to run. Obviously, it looks like there's a child emergency. Ashley?
Oh no, mine was pretty much in line with Brandy. Just the smile on dial. The more dials you make, obviously, it builds your data bank.
Sweet. Okay, so there's a parable that that's out there where a man who was a pearl merchant found a pearl of great value, and he went and sold everything he had so that he could go and purchase that pearl of great value. A couple things that's interesting in that parable. Obviously, I'm going to walk cautiously because that's a parable about Jesus. But when you think about it in that kind of aspect, like what's really interesting about that parable is that there was no implications. That's hilarious. There was no implications that what happened next was that he sold the pearl to be able to get more money, right? So the implications weren't there, that he didn't take that pearl. Once he bought it, it sounds as if he had taken that pearl and he had kept it for himself. And when I think about lead generation and I consider that kind of analogy, once I find the space that helps my business grow, lead generation, I should do everything around me to make sure that's the one thing that I can go and grab. And in grabbing it, I don't sacrifice it ever, right? I don't ever sacrifice it. I always hold on to that. I always make sure that's the one most valuable thing that I could own. So I don't even revere it, right? There is no reverence to it. When we revere something versus respect something, when we put revere to it, we don't want to, we want to put it on a pedestal of like, yeah, lead generation is really important, but yet if we don't ever get into the activity of it, it doesn't exist. If we try to give it away, it doesn't exist. If we don't give everything we have to get that first, it doesn't exist. And so essentially our business does not exist either. And so when I think about this idea and this analogy, what I want you to start doing and why this is so important for me to start thinking about that is that here's the second question. If I took your parable or your analogy and I brought it into the world of teaching an agent, would they have heard that story before? And would that be a tired story? Or would it rejuvenate their brain to think about what lead generation is and what it can be for them?
I tried this with Terry Hightower because she keeps changing and changing. And it didn't matter what I said to her, her mind was made up, was I'm going to do what I'm doing because that's what I have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couldn't get anything across to her.
Yeah, and that's going to be somewhat the way it is. And so I'm going to ask you, this is my next step. I want you to come up, and when I say draw an analogy, make sure we're on the same page. As in, like, I want you to draw up in your brain. I want you to come up with an analogy. I want you to bring and build an analogy. And I really like, so when I think about what you did though, Tori, I want to talk about yours real fast. You personified the fact that, like, if we really want, you personified the idea of lead generation. That's what you did. Like, I don't know, I'm going to break it apart for you. I'm going to subconsciously break yours apart a little bit to tell you. So you drew a person that was the shape of money that was making a phone call. Like, so you personified the idea of it. And so really, if you think about it, if I were having a conversation about what you drew with somebody, I would be talking about the fact that until we actually can see lead generation as its own person, what if you were to hire lead generation in your business? Would you hire the person that you have created lead generation to be or not? because I think most people would look at themselves and now they would reframe their thought processes and go, it's not just about the dials and the calls. It's about, would I actually hire the person that I just personified if that were me? And most of the people, their answer would be no. And it would just create them to be thinking a little bit differently. Right. And so, like, Brandy, what you drew with the telephone and it was wired to the money, I would probably draw another picture to them and say, which one do you think you are? The one that was wired to the money, and draw the other one that was wired to just like busyness. Like, I would try to figure out, what does busyness look like? Because that kind of that negative space that you created, is that, which one are you? Are you wired to, are you tethered to the line that's actually going to create the results for the money you want? Or are you tethered to the one that's just going to make you look busy and at the end of the day make you tired? Do you want just to be known for your calls that make you tired? Because otherwise, just don't make calls. You know, so it's like, it's drawn. And when I talk about this, it's drawing those analogies, because what we keep saying is, make the phone calls, it equals money. Make the phone calls, it equals money. Make the phone calls, it equals money. And yet all of us would agree that the way we make movement, the way we move into things, is by story. And so if we're telling the same old story, we're also going to get the same old results. And so we've got to start drawing these analogies. I love that. Like, somebody who's having a conversation about Terry, then here would be a great version of Terry's story. It's like, awesome. So how wide is your net? If you think you got to keep doing the same thing, then how wide is your net? That's a different conversation to get her right. That's a different conversation. What can you do differently? I don't want to do anything differently. Awesome. So then if you don't want to do anything differently, how wide is your net? Because if you got a little dinky little rod that you've got from the pet store digging in your fish tank, you're going to get what you bought. If you got a big old net that you're working on casting it into the world, then you're going to be able to pick up more. So which are you? Are you a dinky little fish net, or are you going to be actually have something that's worth casting? So these, now, does this make sense? When we start to reframe the way we even think about it and to put together the picture, because I love it. Like, there's a negative and a positive space. And I did this one time at a team meeting. If you looked at the Mona Lisa is a gorgeous, well-known painting, right? If you look at the negative space of the Mona Lisa, which nobody ever pays attention to, it's a weird wasteland looking like background, right? There's two stories always being told there. So there's either a choice of beauty or there's a choice of calamity. And in our states, like what you guys drew in your pictures, which is awesome, you drew the picture of the positive, but on the other side of that is really the other side of that story. And when we can juxtapose those stories, people begin to think differently, and they begin to feel into their emotions of like, which have I actually chose? Would I actually hire the person to lead generate the way that I lead generate if I were building a team? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be no. And so that's a much different way to drive people to an activity versus just telling them what to do. So I want you to think about it. What's the second step? The Mona Lisa. He's just showing us a picture of the Mona Lisa because he actually took a picture of the Mona Lisa so it can be cool. We get it, David. You're cooler than us. Okay. So that's what we want to keep. Yeah. That's all I want to keep us driving to, right? In our world, the way we look at things is just different, and we've got to continue to do that differently. And so even when we come into these objections and somebody says, well, I have blah, 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 you know, it's easy to go, awesome. So what would you say is the best A, B, and C where you're at? It's like this, this, and this. And where do you want to be? It's this, this, and this. Awesome. Well, there's a story that's happening in that gap. And in that gap, you got, you know, so it's different. It's a way of getting people to reframe their brain, and it kind of jolts them out of their thought processes. Does this make sense, guys? This is why I want us to like do these little exercises. And I know that sometimes I feel a little bit like I'm a little bit interesting in my character. And yet I think these are the things that make the difference in how we are able to how we're able to connect with our agents. So, all right, guys, let's talk about ideal schedules, right? I asked you guys to kind of think about what would be the ideal schedule. Like, we got a Corona excuse. Crystal, type just a little tap-a-roo or unmute yourself so we can just see, like, you're frozen, but I think you can hear us.
Oh, I didn't realize I was frozen, but yes, I can hear you.
Okay, and you're unfrozen now. Okay. Ideal schedule. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Let's hear your ideal schedules. And even though this is being recorded, this will not be held against you in the court of law.
I think for me, my ideal schedule would be the time I spend at the office doing my one thing to actually stay home and do my one thing.
Okay.
So then I can really stay disconnected and do my one thing and not feel guilty when people are tapping on my door.
Okay.
My one thing's done, then I go to the office.
Nice.
Well, everything I do except for class, I can do from wherever, but I just wish that I could get our agents to understand they don't all have to call me at lunch and they don't always have to call me at dinner time. And that is what happens day in and day out. And Ashley's shaking her head with the same thing.
Yeah.
5:30 is the magic mark for some reason. It's like, I
That's
don't know
because
what it is.
That's when they've decided they're not busy anymore.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly what it is. And I'll tell you, that's almost 100% of the Loken group calls me after 5:30
Yeah.
because that's their schedule.
Yeah. What's the well, I mean, just because they have more agents, they're obviously going to have more calls, but I get the same thing. Like all of my calls, Michelle Weaver almost always calls me every day at like 5:30 or 6. Not every day, but that's so.
Christine always called me at 7:00.
There you go. Yeah. So
Evening.
okay. So what was your answer then for the ideal schedule?
I don't have an answer.
You don't have an answer for what you would live in an ideal schedule?
Well, my ideal schedule is I'd like to answer these phone calls and take care of them all during the day and not at 7:30 in the morning when, they start texting me. And my absolute schedule is I will not answer your phone or text you or do anything until I am dressed and ready to leave. And
Okay,
I do.
where are you going? You're describing going somewhere. That sounds like a schedule. Yeah, I'm gonna dig into your ribs a little bit. What's the ideal schedule?
Ideal schedule is that I just do
So
all of it.
you're at the office 9 to 5 every day is your ideal schedule.
No.
Okay, then what's your ideal schedule?
Oh, my ideal schedule might be 9 to noon
9 to noon, and then what?
and then work from home
Okay.
or out of my car or somewhere else other than in the office.
Okay. Okay. Shmashley, what about you?
My ideal schedule right now would not be working with kids. That would be great. But I would really like to just like kind of go into the office for a couple hours and then like spend the afternoon working out of the house. I like teaching in front of people because I feel like I get a better interaction than I do teaching over Zoom, because the interaction and the feedback on Zoom is not as good as it is in person. They tend not to ask as many questions. So I would like to teach in the morning and then be somewhere else in the afternoon.
Okay. Is that it? All right.
Yeah.
Feast. We'll go with B Feast.
My ideal schedule would be a 9 to 2, get my appointments knocked out, and then stick around if agents want to talk or need me, and then work from home.
By when? That's so vague.
Oh, well, no, I mean, like 9 to 2 is my schedule, right? But
At the office?
Yeah, at the office. I'm not eager to run out of there. I don't have a schedule to keep. So if like the bakers want to come to my office and talk, that would be the time, not during 9 to 2.
So at 2 p.m., you shut off for the what ifs.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're incredibly structured, like don't bother me from 9 to noon type of lady.
Yeah, because I want to have my appointment scheduled where my door's always shut during that time with somebody in there.
Okay. Crystal?
I think for me, it would be I think I've learned that we can work from home a lot easier. So I think just having one day home, and then I like the schedule that I'm on currently. So, whenever I was going into the office, so 1 or 2 days working from home just to have the ability to still work and get your stuff done, but being able to do stuff that you need to get done at home, because I can easily throw something in the laundry and take a few minutes to do the dishes or whatever needs to be done here and still get all my work done.
So you say 1 or 2 days from home. What is it? 1 or 2?
Let's just say 2 days.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is what I assumed, and so just kind of.
And one thing with mine, Randy, I would
Yeah.
probably rotate when I did my one thing from home, just so that agents that can't come in the morning to see me, I could be there in the afternoon some days, and then they would be able to come in.
Sweet. Tori.
So mine would be, I would come in the office like Mondays and Wednesdays or Thursdays. So Wednesday or Thursday. And just be more virtual, because I feel like I actually get things done more here without distractions, because I'm easily distracted at the office. And I just really enjoy working from home, because especially with everything going on in my life right now, it'll just be easier for me.
2 days per week, you said, at home?
At the office.
Oh, so you want 3 days at home.
Yeah.
2 days office, 3 days home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sweet. Well, I've thought a lot about this. I would get all of my stuff done in the morning, like we've been doing. So having our leadership calls, having all my stuff. So I'd be doing all my stuff at home the way that I've been doing it. At about, I would say 10 to noonish, 10 to actually, I actually changed that already. Starting at noon. So home doing talk about your one thing conversation, David. So that's the one thing conversation happening until noon. At noon starts all of the appointments. And I have 2 to 3 appointments a day. And then at 3 p.m. every single day, I set up and I do my end of the day little things I need to do, sitting at the little community table in the room. And anybody who wants any kind of time or questions or conversations with me can have 100. I will sit there for anybody who wants. So every single day, all of our agents who would want to have me from a standpoint of conversation, that would just be my open hours for agents, and legitimately open. Now, if nobody shows up, I'm going to work on stuff sitting there at that table. But I'm just going to be sitting there at that table, and it'll be like more of a workshop style. So anybody who comes in with questions or conversations, I can get around their computer. If it's a group kind of thing, I can share it. But like, I now am workshopping with our agents every single day, starting at 3 p.m. And then I'm there till 5 and I head home. So that would be ideal for me. Now, all of us have said and realized there's a lot that can be productive at home. There needs to be some productivity at home, and I don't think we've lost that necessarily. But we do have to make sure that we're guarding the productivity of that. So let me ask you this. If an agent was looking at this schedule, because essentially if I were to write this schedule out, David every other day is missing from the office for 4 hours. Every day, Ashley's never there in the afternoon. Brandy's always at the office. Anne is never at the office in the afternoon. 2 days a week, Crystal's not there. 3 days a week, Tori isn't there. And I'm not really there and connected until 3 p.m. every day. How does an agent look at that? What would they look at that and say to that kind of schedule?
You're not there for me.
Okay.
I can see that.
Okay. What else?
I don't know. I feel like there's always going to be someone there. So I don't know if we're not there because we're still here. Like I could still do Zoom coaching calls from the afternoon, schedule my appointments then, still answer my phone. It wouldn't be that we're not there. We're just, if you want to physically see us and you physically want to show up to classes, Anne's classes are this time. Ours is, mine is in the morning, and be there. And if you miss that, then that's on them.
Okay.
Because I feel like they still need to be held accountable to some stuff too, as far as a lot of people are not showing up to classes, but then immediately after the class happens, they're calling with the same question we just went over in class. So it's kind of, I'm spending a lot of time doing double duty on the same thing when I know that I could be productive doing something else. Sorry, I got a 3-week-old kitten I found and almost lost. Corey almost divorced me over it, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But so that's my opinion.
Okay. One of the things that I would say is that I never know who's when where. I never know. I think that's going to be one of the things that we would see is I don't ever know when who's here. I never know what's going on. Right? I think that's an immediate response. I never know what's happening. Okay. What else?
I mean, with the never know, we could always, make sure that our schedule's posted.
Oh, wait. Pause. I don't want solutions. Don't give me any solutions right now, guys. We are not solutions right now.
Okay. So mine, I don't think that I'm on the lines with Ashley. I don't think that people would be like, oh, nobody's ever here to help me, because there's always somebody there. We just have different times.
Not so. I want to make sure and pause. Like y'all are thinking how you want people to respond. Stop thinking that way. An agent will. If I'm an agent, I walk in, I say, "Where's David?" I don't give a crap if Brandy's there. Where's David? So agent walks in and says, "I need to see Ann." They're not going to go, "Oh well, Ann's not here, but Ashley, Crystal, and Tori are here, so I guess I'm satisfied." Right? Let's be very clear about this.
That's true.
It's not our response. This is what will agents think, and I think an agent will go in and say, "I never know when anybody's anywhere."
Yeah, so you're right, because I was thinking on the lines of what I would hope they would say, but yeah, you're 100% right. They're going to say they don't know where we're at. We're never here. Nobody's here for them. Where's everybody at? What are they paying for? When they want help, they want help. And Randy's here, but their door's always shut. So yeah, that's exactly how they'll react, because they're paying for our service. So if they're not getting what they want, then they're not going to see the value.
Isn't that kind of happening right now, though?
Yeah, because they're paying for something and they want what they want. And each person wanting a different thing. We can't please everybody, but that's
we can't.
The way it is.
I love where y'all are going, though. How many of y'all are getting that right now?
I'm getting it even before this one under attack. That was the mindset.
That's not my question. How many of y'all are getting it right now?
I'm not getting it right now. I'm talking to people who are appreciative.
I know. So what you're telling me is that there's something different about our high level of connectivity that's happening right now. What is it? What's different? What's happening?
We're going out of our way to make ourselves more available.
Say again?
We're going out of our way to make ourselves more available.
I don't think you did that differently. I think you were already making yourself available. So what's happening different now?
In my opinion, on my end, what I'm doing that's different is I'm actually reaching out to people and just calling for a relationship, not calling them back because they needed something, but actually calling and checking on them and just touching base,
Okay. Like it. What else?
So we're being the initiators of, you have a question you need answered versus I have a question I need answered. Did that make sense?
Yeah. The way I wrote it down is that we're initiating curiosity.
Yeah. So we're asking them, do you have a question you need answered versus them saying, I have a question I need answered.
What else? I'm going to tell you one that I think is out there. I think there's a high level of vulnerability that is shown through video. Think about like the subconscious ability for me to stand in a room. If I stand in a room and I speak to the room, I'm confident in what I'm doing already. Like if I'm sitting here, and especially for those who are not technologically geared, like you're stressed out to all get out. I think that comes across. And yet what it comes across is, it's not I'm scared of this. It's I'm vulnerable to this. I could make a mistake. There could be a mistake here. I'm real. Like we become more real sitting behind a camera than we have putting on the show that we do when we're in front of people. Not me. I'm always putting on a show because I'm a pain in the ass. Okay. So I think there's a level of vulnerability that's happening as well. What else, guys? And y'all are all absolutely correct on all fronts. And so if we were going to bake a pie, we've got to have all the ingredients. We can't just have a pie full of crust. We can't just have a pie full of the topping. I mean, the fillings, right? I mean, that's how most of us think we can eat pie, but you cannot. You have to have a crust on a pie. And if we were to look at it in that analogy, man, we just described all of the filling. I want to be at home 2 days a week. I want to, what we described in The Agent, like that's the delicate balance of baking a pie. It's either going to be too hot, too fast, burn, or it's going to be slow and methodical and proper and right. So there's like the agent's experience of it is kind of that. And so on the last end of it, what we're really doing, what's happening right now is that one that we missed is that the willingness to experience our leadership virtually has been forced upon them. I don't know that they would choose it. So we've been giving a little bit of gift of that. Like they've been forced to consider virtual, right? I think of a lot of people who would not have done it. Who, if I said, hey, I'm going to get you on a Zoom call. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But they're willing to. So I think the market has forced it. So
I think in many ways, where we are right now, we've become more accessible.
I agree. So what? Go, Crystal, go. No, go.
I also think the on-demand videos, like the recordings, like that you do, and I think that maybe we should do more of for our agents, because some people can't make it. Some people have jobs, and that's always been something that I know has been an issue. That's why I actually had classes that were later in the evening. So I think even though people don't show up to a lot of the classes, whenever they're actually timed for that schedule, they're going back and looking at it. The views are there. So I think that agents do enjoy the on-demand of being able to still get the class when they have time.
Okay. So if we go back to marry this kind of perfect schedule idea, I do think there's a balance to have some home. Obviously, we were already doing that because I wanted y'all to be home 1 day a week to be able to get through the one thing, and yet the one thing's happening every day. And I think that's what David's saying. So what is the perfect melding? And I don't know what this looks like, right? Because I obviously have leadership that I've got to go through as well, and have conversation with Karina to make sure all this makes sense to her as the OP. But I do think there's a balance of working from home. I think there's a balance of on demand and not, let me actually change that. Instant gratification. How about that? Instant gratification. Okay, so agents can get answers right away. I think there's a huge piece of the puzzle is outbound. Outbound conversations is a big piece. I think probably the most important piece of the puzzle is why they actually feel connected is our outbound activities. And our care calls just turn into care calls, but they're just business care calls. Hey, how's everything going? What's going on in your business? What can I help you with? I don't know. Awesome. Nobody could ever say when they left us, right? They can never say if they ever left us, they can never say, well, I just never felt like y'all were there for me to support me. If we call every single one of the people on our roster every single week or every 2 weeks to make sure that they don't need something specific in their business, they can never say that we weren't there, right? Now I do think there's a level of productivity that has to come from the home side of things. So I'm just going to write down the word productivity. So working from home, instant gratification. I think there's a sense of the office. What is important about being in an office? Because only 10% of our agents are ever come through the office in any given day, any given week. About 10, let's say 10 to 20% of our so what does it matter? What does it matter?
The connection, us just being there, if they walk in and, that 10% that does walk in, to have us, saying hi and just being there.
Okay.
If you're talking about the agents, if you're talking about us individually, for me, it's just, I thrive on being in the office. It puts me in a space to make appointments, to work, to connect, to feel like I'm doing something. Not saying that I'm not doing anything here at home, but this is home to me. I love the appointment side of it. Oh, and I forgot to say on mine, I would still like my Wednesday from home, so that way I could call and set the appointments. So Wednesday work from home.
Okay. What else about the office? Is it okay that I'm going over, guys?
Is this a question for agents or for us? Like
either's fine. I'm noting the difference.
Okay, for me, it's the kids. Like if the kids were in school, I would be even way more productive. So going to the office is just like, being able to focus without that distraction. But at the same time, like this time has given that allowance to find a balance with that. So yeah, I think that's the benefit for that. For the agents, I think I agree with Brandy. I think it's us being there, and then I think we have a lot of different personalities with all of our agents, and the ones that like seeing us there, that's how that fuels them, is that connection with us. Yeah.
The fact that we have not been there, and the fact people have been quarantined, this may change that people want to be out with people. And they were having that discussion on Good Morning America this morning, that, it's natural for our people to want to be with other people. And we haven't been able to do that. So for a period of time, it may be more important to be there than we have been.
So here's a really interesting thought that's kind of just popping into my brain. I need to write it down. The office. Yeah. What y'all are talking about, which is really interesting. Don't disagree. The other day I went up to the office to get a couple things done because I thought I would be able to isolate myself and get things done. It took me an hour and a half to actually stop and get into the activity that I wanted to do at the office. Jean came in and grabbed me for 10 to 20 minutes, and it was a very pertinent conversation. It wasn't a conversation that I should have said, hey man, come by, see me later. Cedric stopped in, talked to me about 10, 15, 20 minutes. Chad stopped in for about 10 minutes. Selena and I chatted for about 10 minutes. Haley had a conversation about one of the things that she was working on that wanted my opinion on something. I talked to her for about 15, 20 minutes. Jean came back around and talked to me again. That was how the time went while I was there. And this is the thought that I just had. The office is not a productive space.
No.
It's a connection space.
It's connection.
And it sounds like y'all are more productive at home. Home is your productive space. That's not normal, by the way. That's not normal. That's not a normal way of thinking. And I think we might even be flustered when we get into the office and somebody does take up our time because we've chosen that to be our productive space. And yet everybody who shows up in that space, what you just said, show up for connection. So we need to be able to have the bottom of our list really happening in an office space so that then we can leave the door open for connectivity.
And that's my whole point, is taking the time to do your productivity at the office really makes them angry because you're closing them out. Versus David's at home getting his stuff done. He'll be in shortly. That's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah. Interesting, and I'd like to figure that out, because that's the concept that I was finally wanting to get at in this in bringing this up, is like, what do we do to change? The new normal is not sitting in front of an office desk and doing my phone calls. I've had more productivity doing my phone calls from home. I've had more productivity, and I've got little ones that are like wanting to hang out with me. And so it's a weird deal, but when I get to the office, I get frustrated because I don't actually get through my one thing. And even if I created a bunker, and I think that's one of the things that y'all are saying, I know that like normal coaching would say, well, create your bunker and just don't let anybody through. But there's something about that moment of, I'm not here for you, I'm here to work. And we want to be able to say like this, I don't want to juxtapose or not juxtapose. I don't want to, what's the word? Like squash the whole idea of the MREA, because I think somebody might argue with me that would be different. Like, we need to lead by example and all that stuff. And I don't think there's not a way to show and to be active in productivity, but to be available for connection, which means then I have to draw a line somewhere though. So if I'm going to work from home, that has to be almost the essential the essential return on my investment. I should be able to look at my work that I do at home and go, I literally 80% of what I'm able to accomplish, I accomplish in the 2 hours every day that I'm doing it from home.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my reasoning. From 9 until noon, I get my stuff done, and I know I'm on a schedule. I have to get it done, and any interruptions that I allow now are my own fault. Because Lizzie knows I got to work, so she's not going to come bother me. From noon till 1, you take your lunch. From 1 to 4, now you can go to the office and you can be there and be sociable and not be tied down with tasks, but you're there talking and communicating and teaching 100%.
Yeah, and I even wondered, thinking like, so that would be the on kind of moments, like your office work needs to feel interruptible. It needs to be the interruptible moments. Not all of it, right? Sometimes we do got to shut our door. We got to nose down on projects and stuff. But I wonder if anybody would ever complain if they're like, well, you're never here in the morning. It's like, I know. So that then I can sacrifice and be for 2 complete hours out in the open for any and everybody who wants to have a conversation with me. I am 100% available to answer every single person every single day for 2 hours. Like, would that be, I feel like that would be a benefit, but for some people, would it be, would it not be? It's interesting. I think the balance of it's pretty curious, because what it matters for, the office matters for the people who are coming into the office. And so Joe's not going to be offended. Joe Williams will not be offended if I'm not there at 9 a.m. So I'm thinking about the workers, right? The ones that, the Dillards wouldn't be offended. Matt Parker wouldn't be offended. They might have some challenges from time to time about availability, but at the end of the day, I don't think anybody's going to complain if all of the work that I do from home is so that then I can do stuff. Because like here, I'll tell you right now, I probably get more accomplished than the average person from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. I bet I do more in that 3 hours than most people do in their whole day. Like, and I used to always say that and joke about that, but then I get to the office and there's still at least another 2 or 3 hours of things that I need to do, right? And yet, like, once I hit that door, like, gosh, in the morning, like, and I want to be able to give them connectivity. Like, I want to be able to give that connection. Interesting, guys. Very interesting that we actually go to the office to be less productive. We stay home to be more productive, and that we do our outbound to maintain connectivity to everybody. That's a different way of thinking of it. I don't know how I feel about it yet, because that's obviously that's just like a thought process that just hit us, right? That's not necessarily baking it for a little while. And we've got to bake it. I'm going to tell you I want you to bake on this. Gosh, this would be fun to like to have a secondary conversation. Let it bake on you all day today. And let's come back and like actually have like a fleshed out conversation where you're able to think about it. So tomorrow we're going to come back to this conversation. So we're going to come back to this conversation, and I want another analogy for lead gen. I like it. I like it. Guys, I really like that. Now, and so